Hello, everyone. I'm so sorry not to be here at this wonderful conference and eating that exquisite Indian vegan food, the best in the world. But I hope my message will offer a few encouraging words to you, my animal rights colleagues. I would like to address this colleagues business because we are all in this together, and not just animal rights proponents. In California, model airplane enthusiasts fell out with each other, and the group split in two. Then the members of the two groups couldn't agree on anything, and they split up. I think gorillas could teach us how to act. If gorillas disagree, they just bang their chests and they move on. I was at a conference, and two people who spoke before me, one told the audience, "You cannot be for animal rights if you're in favor of abortion." And the other speaker said, "You cannot be for animal rights if you're against abortion." Now, just do the math. If everyone listened to them, then no one could be for animal rights. When my turn came, I had to say, if a turtle like this is hit by a car and lying in the road, wouldn't he be glad of help from anyone, no matter where they stand on abortion? We will disagree on many things because we're passionate people, but our time is better spent rescuing turtles and other animals, not fighting. When we concentrate on using our energies constructively, we move mountains. Because of activists pushing for reform, Bolivia has outlawed military training on animals and the use of animals in circuses. In Japan, the residents of an island 100 miles from Tokyo have declared dolphins to be citizens, fully protected when in the island's waters. In Switzerland, if a dog lives in your house, you must walk him or her at least 3 times a day. In the UK, you cannot have a fish in a small tank. Here in India, Mumbai decided that the poor bullocks who were inhaling choking exhaust fumes and being worked to death are to no longer pull oil carts. And soon, cosmetics will no longer be tested on animals. And the use of animals in education is to be replaced by sophisticated computer programs. In the US, we have stopped NASA sending monkeys into space, and we have banned keeping wild animals as pets in many states, and chaining dogs up in others. I was really impressed at our progress when I spotted a newspaper headline that read, "Turkey refuses to be bossed about," until I realized it was the country turkey, not the bird. Animals have so many enemies, they need every possible friend they can get. Unfortunately, many people's eyes and hearts and minds are not open. They can't see the animal's plight, and so we have to work extremely hard to get them to understand who animals are. Not what, but who, because what means a table and who is a living being. It may not be people's fault that they don't understand. Some people look into an animal's eyes and they just don't see a reflection of their self as we do. At the extreme end, they do torment and torture animals. In the United States, neurologists are scanning violent criminals' brains in 2 of our toughest prisons, and they're finding that the mirror neuron, that's the seat of empathy, is undeveloped or underdeveloped, not like the ones in the brains of all the people in this room. That's why when someone says, "I'm crazy about animals," I point out that actually they're totally rational because they care about animals, meaning that their mirror neurons are properly developed, whereas it's crazy, literally crazy, not to be able to imagine what another individual is feeling. Of course, some people simply don't understand animals. In the same way, I could stare at a modern painting like this and not understand it. You could tell me why I should, but I still might not get it. In the Iliad, Homer writes about green honey and red seas. He didn't seem to have a clue what color anything was. And that's how some people are with animals, isn't it? They are animal blind. They often believe animals are mean and aggressive when the animals are simply frightened and warning you to stay away. Street dogs don't carry a stick or throw rocks at you and blind you. They just warn you as best they can. And animals try to bravely guard their young or their territory from invasion and harm. Species-blind people can also think that animals are stupid or dumb when they're really extraordinarily clever, and their languages are not only deep and diverse, but they have to try to understand our languages too. I love the study that showed that dogs who live with humans understand, on average, 200 human words, even if no one has taught them a single one. How many words of dog do humans understand? None. An astrophysicist, Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, was quite skeptical that a dog named Chaser was reported to understand 1,000 human words, all for different objects. So last year, he put her to the test. He placed all the objects, they are all her toys, in a room, and he then asked her to fetch a particular object, and she ran next door, rummaged around, and came back with it. He gave her a couple of these tests, and then he said these words, "Fetch Darwin." Now, Chaser had not seen or heard of a toy named Darwin, because Dr. Tyson had never shown it to her. But what he'd done is he'd put it in the pile of the 1,000 objects. Chaser went into the toy room, and then she came back with nothing, and she cocked her head at him. "Fetch Darwin," said Dr. Tyson, and off Chaser went again. And yes, this time she came back with the only toy she didn't know by name. It makes you wonder how many words she would know if her guardians hadn't stopped at 1,000. And as for altruism, the golden rule of do unto others as you would have them do unto you, bats will bring food to ailing bats and even help new mothers in childbirth. Pigeons who mate for life will risk their own lives to stay with a companion or a mate who has been shot or hurt. The ethologist Konrad Lorenz showed that geese sink into a depression if their hearts are broken. They shuffle instead of walking, they lose their appetites, and they no longer care about their appearance. In one notorious study, monkeys had to press a lever to get food. But if they could see another monkey in an adjoining cage who was given an electric shock when they pressed that lever, guess what? They refused that food. One monkey went hungry for 14 days rather than give an electric shock to his fellow. Human beings in studies, like the famous Milgram study, where they think they are giving an electric shock, and they even hear the person screaming, will keep pressing the lever if just told to do so, not for a food or any reward, just told. They'll press the lever even if they think the next shock may prove fatal. I shudder to think what is being done to these monkeys in little barren metal boxes in laboratories in India and around the whole world, these animals who outshine us in ethical conduct. As we say at PETA, it's not the animals who need their heads tested. As for being stupid, the examples to refute that convenient myth about animals are more than the number of raindrops in any monsoon. Like this one. And this. And this. They even have a keen sense of humor as to what they get up to when their people are away, like this. How wonderful if we could help switch expressions that deride animals to ones like faithful as a pigeon, communicative as a crow, clever as a street dog. And sayings are important. I keep a little black book. It's not about my love interests, but of words to live by. And this is my favorite from Rabindranath Tagore. I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. In other words, moaning is meaningless and doing is everything. As Nike says, just do it. Because our journey through life is so brief, even though young people may not realize that. If we could only wear watches that reminded us not what the time is, but how much time remains in our lives, we would certainly hurry up and squeeze the most good deeds out of ourselves. We would never be silent. We would speak up all the time. We would educate, liberate, inspire others to act, to stop thoughtless cruelties, to be a living conscience. We would never fail to have animal rights magazines and pamphlets left like a trail of seeds wherever we go, from bus stops to airline seat backs. We would recommend vegan options to everything from footwear to food, from shampoos to soya milk. We would wear an animal rights button or T-shirt to show the way, not quietly creep, but openly encourage. We would be real advocates. There was an old TV show about the Wild West, and every week the cowboy would rescue someone or do some other good deed. When the townspeople came out to thank him before he rode off into the sunset, he would say, "Oh, it was the least I could do." And that always confused me. I say we strive for the most we can do. Some days you may think, "Oh, I don't feel like pushing myself or saying something." But it's a little bit like going to the gym. Once you have, it's over and you feel good. You did it. I know Oprah Winfrey visited India not so long ago. On her talk shows, she used to say to her audience, "Look under your seats and you'll find an envelope." And they did, and each of them had won a brand new car. I have great news for you today. No, don't look under your seat. There's nothing there. But the good news is that we have all won the lottery. I say that because in this world, most individuals have nothing but their skin or their shell or their legs or their arms or their wings. They have no house, no market, no roads, no tap for water, no hospital, no school, no refrigeration, no bus, no train, no holidays, no comfy mattress, no mobile phones. All they have is what they can get by on from what nature gave them, and most of that has been taken away. They dig a home with their hands. They find plants to cure their illnesses and feed themselves with. They teach their young to survive. They get where they're going under their very own steam, and we should be in awe. Dr. Jane Goodall once saw two well-paid, well-dressed congressional staff members laughing at a chimpanzee. The chimpanzee had been dressed in a little suit, and he was sitting at a table trying to eat with a knife and a fork. He wasn't doing so well. And she said to them, "If I were to set you down in this chimpanzee's home, in the jungle, with none of your gadgets, no one to ask directions of, how long do you think you would last? Would you be able to build yourself a nest to sleep in, know what plants are poisonous and which nourish you, find clean water, navigate your way along, and so much more? No. You would likely die in this chimpanzee's world, yet here he is, surviving in ours, on our terms. Respect him." When we grumble, it's good to remember that we have truly won life's lottery. That's what I mean. People say, oh, animals have no voice. But of course they have voices. It's just that most human beings don't pay attention to them or even bother to understand them. Their cries just become background noise. On the other hand, we have a voice, but we often fail to use it. And our voice is strong and powerful, and we can make choices. We have won the lottery because we have the ultimate prize. We can move about freely without being killed and eaten or put under the yoke. We have won the lottery because our children are not taken away from us as dairy cows' children are, or locked in a cage as parrots' children are. We don't only watch the world go by, we can move about freely in it. We are comparatively rich. No, we're madly rich, all of us. So let's share our winnings, our material wealth and our freedom of speech and our freedom of action for those who truly need us and who didn't win that lottery. And as the beloved Jain Guru Chitrabanuji and other wise people remind us, don't let material things cloud our souls. Caring about stuff rather than about living beings reduces our lives to a bowl of dal. If you don't already do this, I invite you to join me in tithing your income, because even the poorest among us is far better off than the animals we love and worry about. Goethe's words might well have been written for this conference. He wrote, I have come to the frightening conclusion that I am the decisive element. It is my personal approach that creates the climate. I possess tremendous power to make life miserable or joyous. I can be an instrument of inspiration or do nothing. I choose to do. And here's another familiar expression. Take only memories, leave only footprints. Well, how about if we take opportunities and we leave behind new vegans? Opportunities abound. But if opportunity doesn't knock, let's abandon our timidity and build a door to let it through. Here is what Layla, a PETA staffer, wrote about taking opportunities. She said, Tessa and I were waiting in line at the supermarket when we noticed a dead chicken wrapped in plastic along with ingredients for dinner, all on the counter behind us. I commented how sad it was to see this chicken lying there dead, and Tessa said, look, he was a baby, that's why he's so small. I asked Tessa if she thought that the chicken appreciated that he was antibiotic-free, because that's what the label said. And now here he was covered in plastic and about to be someone's dinner. I wonder if that had made a difference to him. Just at that moment, Layla said, a young fellow snatched up the chicken and exclaimed, no, no, oh my God, I can't buy this. I'm so sad now. I can't eat a baby chicken. I didn't even notice it was young. No, no. Tessa and I, Layla said, stared at each other in amazement. We had had no idea he was nearby and had overheard us. Layla said she jumped out of line to show him vegan foods, and he left with them and a Glass Walls DVD that Tessa had in her purse. Now that's vegan power. Before I go, please let me mention cows. Cows are amongst the gentlest of breathing creatures. None show more passionate tenderness to their young. One cow I came to know was called Susie. She was about to be loaded on a Virginia freighter bound for Venezuela when she turned around, ran back down the gangplank, and leapt into the river. Even though she was pregnant, or perhaps because she was pregnant, she managed to swim all the way across the river, getting onto an island and eluding capture for several days. She was rescued by PETA, and she was sent to a home where she gave birth to Jimmy, her calf, and they remained together, devoted to each other, mother and son, for many, many years. The milk she made was for Jimmy, not for any human being. And so it is with every mother cow. The milk she makes is not for us, but for her own children. She never recovers from her children being taken away from her. No mother ever does. Her cries for her child taken away is in every drop of milk, every cube of cheese, and every bit of curd. Let me read you a poem by Maureen Duffy entitled Chattel. Driving back from the Literature Festival through Otley, handsome in black stone, with white reveres of painted windows and doors, I follow behind a tin truck. Gaping an open vent high up at the back, stopped at the lights, the gap is filled with a broad snout, a wet black sponge for sucking up sweetness from deep in summer grass. You crane your head in the hole sideways to let each eye in turn roll up at the sky. Deep in the tumbril shock, you don't speak. I know where you're going this summer's morning and feel you know it too, though how, when no one has ever come back with telltale smell of blood and fear on staring hide. The street is called Wharfdale View. It looks across to where the moors throw a green quilt for miles under a high sky. Why can't I just draw the steel bolt on the tailgate and let you run and run up there till you drop? But the lights change. You turn left, I go right for Leeds. And perhaps I'm quite wrong. Perhaps they're moving you to a new pasture. Then why can't I, safe home, sleep, but still see your face laid along the tailgate with one moist eye turned up, questioning whether I would have drawn that bolt if you'd been able to ask me in a tongue I couldn't kid myself I understood. Maybe we won't open the lorry gate ever, but we know we should. And maybe knowing that, but not doing that, we know we owe it to them. We owe it to our own moral selves to do other things that require almost no courage, sometimes no courage at all. To stop stealing from cows, to shun the leather bag on which, if you look, you can clearly see the marks of the whip. To educate all who cross our paths and some whose paths we have to make an effort to cross. To stop in our travels, even on the way to work, to give aid to those who are not benefiting from human mercy. I am not a Christian, but I remember the story of Jesus stopping to give water to the slave at the well. Any religion or none at all, surely that is how we must live our lives. I wish you good luck in all you do to end cruelty, and I leave you with this little video. Thank you.
They say it's always darkest just before the dawn, but the first light sparks the hope for a better tomorrow. I have this dream in which we meet again for the first time, a morning on which the wind turns and hands us new perspectives. Change is possible if we change ourselves. If we converge and our paths cross each other's. We all are wonders of this world. I have this dream in which our hearts open up then we begin to understand that we don't have the right to kill you, to torture you. I have this dream to wake up in a world in which we discard our callousness, our hearts awake, compassion determining our actions, a world in which we stop making clothes out of the skin which not too long ago felt sun and the wind. For us, it's only about a meal, just a moment. For them, it's about life itself. From the halls of abandoned slaughterhouses, the freedom ring. This is an ode to freedom. Listen to its sound.